If your doctor has told you that you have bone loss, if you have been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, or if you are simply worried about becoming frail and breaking a bone as you get older, I need you to stay with me for the next several minutes because what I am about to reveal could explain exactly why your bones are weakening, and it has nothing to do with your calcium intake or your age. This is not about taking more supplements. This is not about drinking more milk. This is about a daily habit that seems completely harmless, something you probably do for many hours every day without thinking twice about it, that is actively destroying your bones from the inside out. The cruel irony is that many seniors adopt this habit because they think they are protecting themselves. They believe they are being safe. They believe they are being reasonable. And all the while their bones are becoming more fragile, more porous, and more likely to fracture with every passing day. Let me make you a clear promise right now. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly which common habit accelerates bone loss faster than aging itself. You will learn why this habit is so destructive to your skeleton and how the damage happens at the cellular level. And you will know precisely what to do instead to protect your bones and potentially reverse some of the damage that has already occurred. I am Dr. James Mitchell. I have spent over 25 years helping patients maintain strong bones and avoid the devastating fractures that can permanently change quality of life. And one of the most frustrating patterns I see is seniors who are doing what they think is safe while unknowingly destroying their skeletal health. They come to me after a bone density scan shows significant loss. They tell me they take their calcium. They tell me they avoid dangerous activities. They tell me they are careful. And yet their bones are crumbling faster than they should be. When I ask about their daily habits, the problem becomes immediately clear. The thing they think is keeping them safe is actually the thing that is making them fragile. So let me ask you directly. How many hours each day do you spend sitting? In a chair? On a couch? In a car? At a desk? Be honest with yourself. Add up all the time from when you wake up until you go to bed that you spend off your feet. Write your answer in the comments below, because awareness of this number is the first step toward protecting your bones. Let me tell you about a woman named Margaret. Margaret was 68 years old and had always considered herself health conscious. She took calcium and vitamin D supplements every day. She avoided risky activities. She was careful on stairs. She did everything she thought she should do to protect her bones. But Margaret had developed a lifestyle that revolved around sitting. She sat during breakfast while reading the news. She sat in her favorite chair for hours watching television. She sat while doing puzzles and crafts she enjoyed. She sat during meals. She sat in the evening with her husband. Margaret rarely stood for more than a few minutes at a time. She rarely walked more than a short distance. She believed this was simply appropriate for her age. She thought she was being sensible. When Margaret's bone density scan came back, she was shocked. She had significant osteoporosis in her spine and hips. Her doctor told her she was at high risk for fracture. Her bones had deteriorated far more than expected for her age. Margaret could not understand how this happened. She had taken her supplements faithfully. She had avoided falls. She had been so careful. What Margaret did not realize was that her hours of daily sitting were destroying her bones more effectively than any risk factor she was trying to avoid. The very caution she thought was protecting her was accelerating her skeletal decline. When we changed Margaret's daily movement patterns, when we got her on her feet regularly throughout the day, her bone loss stabilized. Her next bone density scan showed improvement for the first time in years. Margaret had not changed her supplements or her diet. She had simply stopped sitting her bones into oblivion. Here is what I need you to understand about bones and why this matters so much. Your bones are not static structures like the beams of a building. They are living tissue that constantly remodels itself. Old bone is broken down by cells called osteoclasts. New bone is built by cells called osteoblasts. This cycle happens continuously throughout your entire life. When you are young, bone building outpaces bone breakdown. Your skeleton grows stronger and denser until you reach peak bone mass around age 30. After that, the balance gradually shifts. Breakdown begins to exceed building. Bone density slowly declines. This age-related bone loss is normal and expected. It happens to everyone. But here is the critical point that most people miss. The rate of this loss is not fixed. It varies dramatically based on how you use your body. Your bones respond to mechanical stress. When you put force through your skeleton by standing, walking, climbing, carrying weight, your bones receive signals to stay strong. The mechanical loading tells osteoblasts to build more bone. It tells the bone-building process to keep up with the bone breakdown process. But when you remove that mechanical loading by sitting for hours on end, the signal disappears. Your bones receive no message to maintain their strength. Osteoblasts become less active. Osteoclasts continue their work unopposed. Bone breakdown accelerates while bone building slows. This is why astronauts in zero gravity lose bone so rapidly. Without the force of gravity loading their skeletons, their bones have no reason to stay strong. Their bodies begin to reabsorb bone tissue at an alarming rate. You are not in space. But when you sit for extended periods, you are creating a similar environment for your skeleton. You are removing the loading that bones need to maintain themselves. You are sending your body the message that strong bones are not needed. The research on this is staggering. Studies show that seniors who sit for more than 8 hours per day have significantly lower bone density than those who sit less. The more sitting, the more bone loss. The relationship is direct and measurable. One study found that for every additional hour of daily sitting, hip bone density decreased measurably. Another study found that seniors who interrupted their sitting regularly throughout the day had substantially better bone density than those who sat continuously even if total sitting time was similar. This means it is not just about how much you sit. It is also about how you sit. Sitting for 2 hours straight is worse for your bones than sitting for 4 30-minute periods with standing and walking in between. Let me tell you about another patient named Richard. Richard was 74 years old and had been quite active earlier in his life. He had worked a physical job, he had played sports, he had always had strong bones. But after retirement, Richard became increasingly sedentary. He spent his days in his recliner watching television and reading. He would sit for 4 or 5 hours at a stretch, getting up only to use the bathroom or get a snack. He believed he had earned this rest after decades of hard work. Over the course of 5 years, Richard's bone density plummeted. He developed osteoporosis in his spine. His posture changed as vertebrae began to compress. He lost 2 inches of height. Richard was confused and angry. How could his bones fail him so quickly? He had been strong his whole life. The answer was clear when we looked at his daily activity patterns. Richard had gone from loading his bones for hours every day at his physical job to loading them for minutes at most. His skeleton had adapted to this new reality by becoming weaker. It was simply following the signals his behavior was sending. When Richard began a program of regular standing and walking throughout the day, his bone loss slowed dramatically. We added some simple resistance exercises. His next bone density scan showed stabilization. The rapid decline had stopped. Richard often says that his recliner was his worst enemy. He thought it was his reward for a life of hard work. Instead, it was stealing his strength. Now I want to explain more specifically what happens inside your bones when you sit too much, because understanding the mechanism helps you appreciate the urgency. Your bones contain a network of cells called osteocytes embedded within the bone tissue. These cells act as sensors. They detect mechanical strain when force is applied to the bone. When you stand, walk, or exercise, the ground reaction forces travel up through your skeleton. Your bones bend microscopically under this load. The osteocytes sense this bending and respond by triggering bone-building processes. When you sit, this mechanical signaling stops. Your bones are not being loaded significantly. The osteocytes go quiet. The message to build and maintain bone is not sent. Additionally, prolonged sitting reduces blood flow to bones. The circulatory changes that occur when you sit for hours limit the delivery of nutrients and oxygen to bone tissue. This further impairs the bone-building process and can accelerate bone breakdown. There is another mechanism at work as well. Sitting for extended periods affects your muscle mass. Muscles attach to bones and pull on them during movement. This pulling creates additional mechanical loading that stimulates bone strength. When you sit constantly, your muscles atrophy. You lose muscle mass. The pulling force on your bones decreases. Another source of bone-strengthening stimulation disappears. This creates a vicious cycle. Sitting leads to muscle loss. Muscle loss leads to less bone loading. Less bone loading leads to bone loss. Bone loss leads to weakness and fear of activity. Fear of activity leads to more sitting. And the cycle continues. I see this cycle destroy seniors' skeletal health repeatedly. By the time they realize what is happening, significant damage has already occurred. Let me tell you about a woman named Eleanor. Eleanor was 71 years old and had become afraid of falling. A friend of hers had fallen and broken a hip. Eleanor was determined not to let that happen to her. So Eleanor stopped doing anything that might cause a fall. She stopped walking outside. She stopped climbing stairs. She stopped doing housework that required bending or reaching. She sat in her safe living room as much as possible. Eleanor believed she was protecting herself. In reality, she was guaranteeing the outcome she feared most. By sitting constantly and avoiding all activity, Eleanor's bones were weakening rapidly. Her muscles were disappearing. Her balance was deteriorating from lack of practice. Every month she became more frail and more likely to fall and fracture. When I met Eleanor, she could barely stand from her chair without assistance. Her bone density was severely compromised. She was at extreme risk for exactly the hip fracture she had been trying so hard to avoid. The safest thing Eleanor could have done was stay active. Movement would have kept her bones strong, her muscles capable, and her balance sharp. Her fear of falling led her to behaviors that virtually guaranteed a fall would be catastrophic when it eventually occurred. We worked gradually with Eleanor to rebuild her activity tolerance. We started with simply standing more during the day, then short walks, then gentle exercises. It was a slow process because of how much ground she had lost. Eleanor did eventually fall, but by then she had rebuilt enough strength that she caught herself and did not fracture. If she had fallen at her previous level of fragility, the outcome would likely have been very different. Now let me share what actually protects bones and how you can implement these strategies starting today. The most important principle is simple. You must load your bones regularly throughout each day. This does not mean you need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. It means you need to be on your feet, moving and putting force through your skeleton consistently. Standing alone is beneficial compared to sitting. When you stand, your body weight creates force through your hips, spine, and legs. Your bones receive the signal to maintain themselves. Simply standing for a few minutes every 30 to 60 minutes of sitting provides meaningful bone protective benefit. Walking is even better because it creates impact forces that travel through your skeleton. Each step sends a small signal to your bones to stay strong. Walking for just 30 minutes per day, even in short segments, provides substantial bone protection. Stair climbing is particularly powerful for bone health. The higher impact of climbing stairs creates greater mechanical loading than level walking. If you have access to stairs and can climb them safely, doing so regularly is one of the best things you can do for your bones. Resistance exercise, even simple bodyweight exercises, strengthens both muscles and bones simultaneously. When muscles pull on bones during exercise, it stimulates bone building. Exercises like standing from a chair, wall push-ups, and supported squats can all contribute to bone health. Let me tell you about a man named Thomas. Thomas was 76 years old and had been diagnosed with osteoporosis 2 years earlier. His doctor had prescribed medication and told him to take calcium and vitamin D. Thomas followed these instructions, but his bone density continued to decline at his next scan. Thomas came to me frustrated and looking for answers. When we reviewed his daily habits, the problem was obvious. Thomas sat for approximately 10 hours every day. He stood and walked for less than an hour total. His bones were receiving almost no loading stimulus. We developed a simple plan for Thomas. He would stand for 5 minutes every hour throughout the day. He would take 3 10-minute walks daily. He would climb a flight of stairs twice each day. He would do simple resistance exercises 3 times per week. Thomas was skeptical that such basic changes could matter when medication had not helped. But he committed to the plan. At his next bone density scan, Thomas's results had improved for the first time since his diagnosis. His spine showed measurable increase in density. His hips had stabilized. His doctor was impressed. Thomas had not changed his medication or supplements. The only change was consistent daily loading of his skeleton. That alone had been enough to reverse the decline. Now I want to give you specific practical strategies for reducing sitting time and increasing bone loading activity. First, set a timer to remind yourself to stand every 30 to 60 minutes. This simple intervention can dramatically reduce continuous sitting time. When the timer goes off, stand for at least 2 to 5 minutes. Walk around if possible, then you can sit again until the next reminder. Second, stand during activities that do not require sitting. Take phone calls standing up. Watch television standing for portions of the program. Read standing at a counter occasionally. Every minute of standing is a minute of bone loading that sitting does not provide. Third, replace some sitting activities with standing or walking alternatives. Instead of sitting to have coffee with a friend, take a walk together. Instead of sitting to watch grandchildren play, stand nearby. Instead of sitting to wait for appointments, walk the hallway. Fourth, Break up long sitting periods with movement breaks. If you are watching a movie, stand and walk during commercials, or pause the film every 30 minutes to move. If you are reading, set a timer and stand for each chapter break. Fifth, add intentional walking to your daily routine. 3 10-minute walks spread throughout the day is easier for most people than one 30-minute walk and may actually be more beneficial for bones because of the repeated loading stimulus. Sixth, incorporate stairs whenever safely possible. Taking stairs instead of elevators, walking up and down your home stairs a few extra times each day, and making stair climbing a deliberate practice all contribute to bone strength. Seventh, consider simple resistance exercises that you can do at home. Standing from a chair without using your arms works your legs powerfully. Wall push-ups strengthen your arms and shoulders. Standing on one leg improves balance while loading your hip bones. These exercises take only minutes but provide meaningful bone stimulus. Let me tell you about one more patient whose story illustrates what is possible. Her name was Dorothy. Dorothy was 73 years old and had been quite sedentary for many years after her husband passed away. She lived alone and spent most of her time sitting, either in front of the television or at her kitchen table. Dorothy's bone density scan revealed severe osteoporosis. Her doctor was concerned she was at imminent risk of fracture. He strongly recommended medication. Dorothy was resistant to medication due to concerns about side effects. She asked if there was anything else she could try first. Her doctor reluctantly agreed to give her 6 months to make lifestyle changes before starting medication. Dorothy committed completely to changing her movement patterns. She bought a timer and set it to go off every 45 minutes. Every time it rang, she stood and walked around her apartment for 5 minutes. She began taking 3 short walks outside each day. She started climbing the stairs to her apartment twice daily instead of always taking the elevator. She did simple exercises each morning. The change in Dorothy was remarkable. Not only did her next bone density scan show improvement, but she felt stronger, more energetic, and less isolated. The walking had connected her with neighbors. The exercises had given her confidence. She felt like a different person. Dorothy did not need to start medication. Her bones continued to improve over the following years with consistent activity. She became an advocate among her friends for standing and moving regularly. Now I want to address some common concerns and objections, because I know changing habits is not always easy. Some people worry that they cannot stand or walk much because of joint pain or other health conditions. I understand this concern. But here is an important truth. For most conditions, appropriate movement actually helps rather than hurts. Joints that are not moved become stiffer and more painful. Bones that are not loaded become weaker. If you have significant health limitations, work with your healthcare provider to find movement strategies that work for you. Aquatic exercise, seated movements, assisted standing, and other modified approaches can all provide bone benefit within your limitations. The goal is to find some form of regular loading, not to do exactly what someone else does. Some people feel embarrassed to stand during activities where others are sitting. They feel self-conscious about being different. I encourage you to reframe this concern. Standing to protect your bones is not strange. It is wise. Anyone who would judge you for taking care of your health is not someone whose opinion should matter. Some people find it difficult to remember to interrupt sitting regularly. Technology can help. Smartphone timers, smartwatches that remind you to stand, and simple kitchen timers all work. Building the habit takes time but eventually becomes automatic. Some people worry that standing and walking more will make them tired. The opposite is usually true. Movement generates energy. Sitting too much actually causes fatigue. Most people who increase their daily activity report having more energy, not less. Here is what I want you to remember from this video. Prolonged sitting is one of the most destructive habits for bone health. It removes the mechanical loading that bones need to maintain their strength. It accelerates bone loss faster than aging itself. The solution is not complicated. Stand regularly throughout the day. Walk as much as you safely can. Take stairs when possible. Do simple resistance exercises. Interrupt sitting frequently with movement. Your bones are living tissue that responds to how you use them. When you stop using them, they weaken. When you load them regularly, they maintain their strength or even get stronger. The seniors who maintain strong bones into their 80s and beyond are not lucky. They are active. They stand and move throughout each day. They load their skeletons consistently. You can be one of those seniors. The information in this video gives you the knowledge. Now it is up to you to put it into practice. Every hour you spend sitting is an hour your bones receive no signal to stay strong. Every time you stand, walk, or climb stairs, you are telling your bones that strength is needed. The choice you make repeatedly throughout each day determines whether your skeleton supports you or fails you as you age. If this information was valuable to you, please share it with other seniors who may be unknowingly sitting their bones into fragility. The more people who understand this connection, the more fractures can be prevented. And if you want more guidance on protecting your bones and your health as you age, subscribe to this channel. I have much more to share with you about building and maintaining a strong body in your senior years. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. James Mitchell. Get on your feet because your bones are counting on you.